And now we're gonna sit here and wait and hope for some wildlife to come by. Nothing yet. So we're gonna climb to the top of that mountain there and see what we can find, because there's some great landscape back behind that area. I did find a wild Alaskan in his native habitat here. So he provided some subject material for me to shoot with this lens. As a landscape lens, this lens is really nice if you want to isolate a subject, really isolate against a backdrop. The other thing that's fantastic about this lens is that the macro capability, or the near macro capability of it, is really good. You can get really close to something and take a really nice picture, which is actually, I found some really cool stuff to take some macro shots up here. Another thing to consider though is if you're backpacking like I am, 7, 8, 9 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles into the wilderness, it's a heavy lens to backpack with. It comes in at about 4 pounds, which is not bad, lightweight, sort of lightweight, but it is something to consider. If you're gonna put 4 extra pounds for one lens in your backpack, you really wanna make sure that you know it's gonna be worth it. Now, unfortunately, even though we've been waiting up here and spending a couple of days out here, we haven't seen very much wildlife. I was hoping to see some caribou or some wolves. We saw lots of evidence of them, but actually did not see any of them. But I do know of a place where we will definitely see some wildlife, and that's where we're gonna go next. So we came to this beach, nice little area here out in Prince William Sound, and there's an eagle up in the trees behind us here that we're gonna try and get some photos of with the A1 and the Tamron 150-500, which is a great combination because you have this fantastic autofocus with the A1 and then 50 megapixels to work with, so you don't actually have to get that close. Now we're going to move on and see if we can find some other wildlife to shoot and film from while I'm in the kayak, which is a huge challenge because everything's moving all of the time, and it does kind of limit the focal length I can use unless I ramp my shutter speed up to like 2000. It just is hard to get very sharp pictures. But even at 350, 400 or so, I've been able to get some pretty good pictures from the kayak of some of the sea life in the area and some other stuff around us as we go. This lens is obviously a great choice for wildlife, a great choice for extreme close-ups, extreme distances, but there was one more way I wanted to test this before putting this video together, and that's in one of the most challenging environments possible. never had the opportunity to shoot air to air, it's an extreme challenge for everything because everything's moving at 100 miles an hour and everything in the airplane, including yourself, is vibrating. So it's an extreme challenge for vibration, optical image stabilization, and in-body stabilization. To which I found the Tamron responded really well. Now, it didn't do great out at longer focal lengths, but I've never had good luck with lenses out at longer focal lengths, but it did do really well. And I was even finally able to get the full prop disc, which means my shutter speed had to be about 1/80th or maybe 100th to be able to get that full prop disc because you want to blur the prop. It's a real challenge to get that and get the airplane sharp as you're flying along at 100 miles an hour and everything is moving around you. Now, most of the shots I took while I was up there, while we were flying around between these two airplanes, turned out great. I did miss quite a few. That's pretty normal. I usually only get maybe 20% usable shots from anything I ever do air to air, and that's just part of the way you're trying to shoot with a slower shutter speed, and also everything's moving and changing, the dynamics, the lighting, everything is changing really fast, but the Tamron did really well. All in all, Tamron's created an excellent lens for wildlife, for any extreme telephoto stuff. It handles it really well. The autofocus is excellent. It's extremely fast, being that it's such a long focal length and so accurate. And on that, one thing you will get used to using quite a bit is the switch that goes from full to 3 meters to infinity and 15 meters to infinity. Especially if you're shooting through a lot of objects, you want to be able to put that switch in the area, the range that it's going to get you the most usable footage. When set properly, the autofocus worked really well and very quickly on any A7, A1, A9 series body that I tried this lens out with. The sharpness of this lens, edge to edge, overall is excellent. The image performance, the optical performance of it is really, really good. I'm not going to great depth and great detail there because a lot of people have already covered that. But I will say that in use, this lens has performed really, really well, and I'm very, very excited to add one to my lens collection. It's an excellent lens for wildlife. It's an excellent lens for anything that you're going to do with the extreme photography or even videography, especially for setting it on a tripod and you really want the reach to be able to punch way in at events or somewhere where you're going to be a ways away from something. This lens is a fantastic performer. There are a couple of reasons that I would pick this lens over some of the comparable lenses. One is price. This is $1,400. Maybe the comparable lenses are quite a bit more than that. The performance for $1,400 is fantastic. You just get some spectacular images out of it. The construction quality is excellent. I put this one through a lot of abuse, a lot of hiking, a lot of kayak trips, a lot of in and out of small airplanes, and it withstood a lot of abuse really well. Not surprising considering all of my other Tamron lenses have withstood a serious amount of abuse here in Alaska as well. It feels great in your hands, balances well with a camera body, especially if you two-hand it, holding the camera body and the lens, zooming out even to 500 millimeters. It doesn't feel like it gets terribly front heavy like some other lenses I've used do. This just is a really fantastic, great performing lens for anybody who's looking to really get serious about some wildlife photography or airplane, air-to-air stuff, even ground-to-air stuff. This lens is a fantastic performer. And one of the things that surprised me was how much I enjoyed using this lens for landscapes. Here you can see a shot, well, this isn't a landscape, but you can see a shot of the moon I took. This is in sunlight. The moon looks really great. You can zoom way in and see a lot of great detail. And this was handheld, me just holding it up, pointing at the moon and snapping a photo. But I really enjoyed this for landscapes because being able to really punch in and isolate just what I wanted, like this mountain with the clouds coming off the back side of it, or some of these mountain peaks here, it just really enables you to get a much better framing of a subject in landscape than you would without a really telephoto lens. Now, I've used a 70 to 180, my Tamron 70 to 180 for landscapes a lot. I love that for landscapes. It does a phenomenal job. But this really enables you to go a lot further and be able to capture and isolate a subject in a landscape a lot more, which is really great. I know a lot of people take these lens collars off. This has got an Arca Swiss compatible plate. And I know a lot of people take these collars off, but this actually was really nice because I was able to hold it and get a good tight grip around it when I was shooting out the window of the airplane. And if you've never shot out the window of an airplane when it's going 100 miles an hour, it's really nice to know that you've got a really good firm grip and grasp of your camera gear. because if you let go, it's very likely you won't get it back. And the vibration compensation, the lens-based stabilization in this, coupled with a body that has in-body image stabilization, does a great job. Maybe not quite as good as other lenses out there, but I would say this is 95%, maybe 98% of the way there, and it works really well. You've got the 3 different modes. Mode 1 is kind of your standard basic all-around mode, stabilizing pretty much every direction. Mode 2 is specific for panning. So if you're panning left to right, the compensation, the vibration, the optical image stabilization won't fight you as you move left to right, but it will give you good stable footage again, or good stable shots. This is handy, especially if you're trying to shoot birds in flight or airplanes in flight. And then mode 3 is where it will kind of try and lock whatever your framing is as soon as you push the shutter button. So that's useful, especially if you're hand holding and you're shooting something that's quite a ways off, an eagle in a tree, something like that. That's a great use for mode 3 because it kind of locks the image stabilization, not locks it down to where it doesn't move, but it tries to hold the framing that you've got as you push the shutter button and keep that throughout the as the photo is being taken. If you want to see other lenses that are fantastic for Sony cameras, a lot of them are Tamron. Click or tap right there. It's a small playlist. I'll see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, join me on my live stream Wednesday nights 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern, or let me know in the comments below. I will see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.